We often get comments, oh goodness, I don't know why XYZ doesn't spook all the deer in the timber. And I think the answer is relatively simple. Seems a lot of us fall into the trap of thinking like a human, pretty obvious, right? Rather than thinking like a deer. When I say thinking like a deer, I think it puts everything in a different perspective. And here's just some 30,000-foot examples. I know city parks and golf courses or along highways, deer stand there almost like they're oblivious to everything going on around them. But you're creeping to your street stand and you step on a stick or the wind hits you on the back and blows towards a deer and they're out of there. Why is that? Why is it that 14 semi trucks in a row can go by 3 deer feeding on the side of a highway and they don't even lift their head up, yet I'm creeping through the woods and they detect me and blow out of there? It has to do what deer consider danger, what alerts deer. Just like us, most of us are blessed that when we're in our home, our guarded and up, everything's safe and secure, and hopefully we know everyone's a friend and wanting us to do good. Our guard is not up. But if you dropped one of us in Afghanistan or Somalia or somewhere, our guard would be way up. We'd be seeking cover and we'd be tuned in to every odd sound or anything that wasn't in its place, anything that wasn't normal. Well, the same are true with deer, except they're way more tuned into survival every day than we are. So a deer raised on a golf course, been around golfers every day, they don't associate golfers, the smell of humans like that, a golf cart, probably lawnmowers on the golf course, anything like that with danger. They just stand there, maybe look at them every now and then, make sure everything's okay, but they're not fleeing out of there. But if there was something strange, maybe like a four-wheeler at high speed blowing down that golf course, which they've never seen on a golf course fairway, I'm sure all the deer would get the heck out of Dallas. Well, the same is true for our hunting properties. On our property and a lot of properties, we use UTVs. We got our trackers going all the time. We work all summer long. My wife and family's out here enjoying the property. Deer on our place pretty much ignore our UTVs. So when I have an opportunity, I like to drive that UTV as close to my redneck blind or my hunting position as I can within reason. If I walk that last half mile or quarter mile to my hunting location, I'm leaving scent the whole way, I'm respirating the whole way. That's probably not as common in some areas of our ranch as using the UTV, especially down a roadway. So I want to do things that deer hear, see, smell frequently and do not associate with danger. If you remember that key, everything falls in place pretty easy. I want to do things as a hunter that deer do not associate with danger. For example, you know, we got a lot of tree stands, but relative to how many trees are on this property, it is a very small percent. So when there's a couple guys, a hunter and a cameraman up in a tree, that's very odd to a deer and it's going to alert them. That's just not something they experience on a frequent basis. So of course, if you get busted in a tree, here anyway, you're most likely to alert deer. Contrast to our redneck blinds. You know, we don't move a redneck blind that frequently. We've moved them before, but certainly not during deer season. So that blind sitting there either on a trailer or on a 10-foot tall stand on a base, if you've got a blind sitting there and you leave the window shut all the time, and then you're out there hunting and you open every window on that blind, well, it looks different, right? That big old window open is much different than closed. And also it doesn't contain as much scent. Obviously blinds aren't 100% scent proof or we wouldn't get fresh air and we'd suffocate in there after a while. But certainly a high quality blind like our rednecks can hold in an awful lot of our scent. Wind's not just blowing through there taking your scent with you. So when it's cool enough, I prefer to keep the window shut and open it right before the shot if I can. You know, opening day of deer season, it's probably too hot and you can't do that, but I'm gonna crack a window on the back side of blind so it doesn't look different to a deer approaching from the front from what they're used to seeing. Some of y'all remember studying Pavlov's dog or that theory way back in school. Pavlov was a scientist and he fed dogs a steak every day for I think 60 days or something like that. And then at the same time, then one day he didn't feed them and he noticed they were salivating. They were conditioned to getting a steak every day at that time. Well, that worked really well in that research, but that's not the same as all the spin feeders or deer feeders, the thousands or millions of those rascals throughout the whitetails range. You think about this, deer certainly learn to associate that with a free source of food. That might be good. I think there's some negatives to feeding, but what we don't see is hunters there every day. So there's food there every day and a hunter there every now and then, at least at most feeders. And deer learn to associate those feeders with danger and often come at night when there's never a hunter there. Now you think about your trail camera pictures you have on feeders. Are there more mature bucks using those feeders at night or during the daytime? We know from good GPS research, bucks move during daytime, but they usually don't move where hunters commonly hunt. You can harvest a mature buck, mid-morning, late afternoon, something like that. Millions are killed every year like that. But on feeders where there's a lot of hunting pressure, that's a rare case. Now, if you're in South Texas on a great big high fence ranch and there's very limited hunting pressure, South Texas is known for very limited hunting pressure, yeah, deer walk out in daylight using feeders. And I think people see that on some show and think, boy, I'm here in Georgia or wherever it is, that's gonna happen at my place. The hunting pressure, the number of hunters per acre is typically much higher, on a lease or even private land in South Georgia than it is in South Texas, and you're gonna get a different response from deer using the feeders because in South Texas, those deer usually don't associate feeders with danger. On a lot of the better South Texas ranches, they do what's called corning the roads. They bait the roads, and if you're going to use bait as your hunting tactics, that's probably better than a feeder because you've got it spread out through a long distance on a road and they're not associating any one area with danger. Again, that's if you're using bait as a hunting strategy. For the bulk of us that don't use bait as a hunting strategy, again, we need to think like a deer. How can I approach, hunt, and exit an area without alerting deer?
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Moultrie Mobile, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
So things that are common, like farmers driving tractors through fields, maybe a farmer feeding cattle in the same truck every day. Gosh, if I could get that farmer to give me a ride to the stand, I'd be as happy as a fat hog in a wallow, because they're so used to that farmer's truck, as long as he's not shooting out of the truck window all the time, they're gonna ignore it. You always hear the farmer say, yeah, I see those old bucks down there in the corner of the pasture all the time. You go whipping down there on your brand new UTV and you don't ever see those rascals because it's something different. It alerts them. So just like if we're sitting here all calm and peaceful and all of a sudden there's a big sonic boom right above us, naturally, we all kind of duck down and look around. I've seen it happen several times. It's something new, different, and even with humans, something new or different, sudden, loud, often alerts us. Let's take this one step farther. We think about hunting with a bow, and we've published a lot, we've shared a lot about deer reacting to the sound of the bow and arrow. No matter what brand of bow you're using, when that cam stem's around, there's a pretty loud pop when that cable slaps the cam. That's certainly something different in the deer woods. They're likely gonna pick their head up, right? And then there's that arrow with either vanes or feathers making noise right toward them. Well, that causes them often to drop and turn away from that sound. You ever notice on video, they almost always drop and turn away. Even if cover is closer on this side where the hunter is, they turn away. I mentioned sonic booms, but not all loud noises really alert deer. I'll give you a couple great examples. A lot of y'all know my daughter shot a lot of trap at a high level, And I've been at trap ranges that are literally a mile long and millions of shotgun shells going off in a weekend, literally. And I often am amazed that about 100 yards downrange, while kids are shooting, thousands of kids on a line, 5 people per squad, and watching deer out there feeding just past where that really light, trap load has got to fall out there. There's a couple of reasons. I mean, they hear that almost every day. People practicing certainly hear it most of the days out a year. They don't feel any danger with that. And the second reason deer like to feed in those rifle ranges or trap ranges, of course, a big component of gunpowder is nitrogen. And wherever that smoke tends to blow most often, it's going to be super fertilized. I've seen this on DOD or Department of Defense rifle ranges and certainly trap ranges throughout the United States. If you go to a military base, I've worked on several, and the guys are out there shooting thousands and thousands of rounds, whatever the predominant downwind direction is or where that smoke is blowing will be more fertilized than the predominant upwind direction. And it's common to see 15 or 20 deer out there feeding while America's best are out there practicing with automatic weapons. Hopefully you don't have as many shots going off your property as on a trap range or a military base installation. But certainly gunshots throughout most of the whitetails range are fairly common. In my neighborhood, I know me, my neighbors, whatever, we shoot pistols after work, whatever, we shoot guns a lot. And oftentimes deer don't even raise their head in the summer or during hunting season. A big mistake hunters make, again, thinking like a human, they got a couple tags in their pocket and maybe they say, oh, I want to feel a doe tag, and man, they're sitting there and old nanny steps out and they take that shot and they want to get out of their stand or blind, go out there and drag that deer out of the way. And they're gonna leave human scent all over, they're pulling something heavy so they're respirating hard, they're probably spitting all over the ground, stuff like that. We've shown this in video after video. You're much better just to stay in your stand or blind. That gunshot did not alert deer unless the bullet was whizzing right past them or something. Sit there and allow that dead deer to give off some scent, and that will attract other deer. Dan and I both have harvested really nice bucks by harvesting the doe first, just staying in our blind and letting a deer smell that dead doe, even though a gunshot just went off, and come right to it.
He sees your doe.
But if we got down and walked there and kind of boogered up the area with a bunch of human scent everywhere, that's almost positively not going to happen. Look at that. Ozark Mountain stud right there. One of my favorite things to do when I'm rifle hunting is fill a doe tag right off the bat. First thing in the morning or the afternoon hunt, take a double shoulder shot, drop it like a rock right there in front of me, obviously in a shooting lane. It's not gonna spoil that quick. And that is probably the best attractant, hear me clearly, probably the best attractant I've ever found to bring in mature bucks into our shooting lane. I think the moral of this story is, again, think like a deer. What do deer where you're hunting experience all the time? I mean, if you're hunting close to Cape Canaveral, those rascals are hearing rockets fly off all the time, they probably don't lift their head. But you go out there where there's no trespassing in a swamp buggy, those rascals are heading towards Dallas. So what's common in your area? And some of the hardest hunting, if you use traditional hunting techniques, is, you got your lease or your granny's property, and no one's hunted there all year long. No one's been there feeding cattle, mowing. It's just set there like a deer sanctuary. Oh my gosh, it's the perfect deer sanctuary. And then you go busting in there, either walking or on your UTV, and the deer have not experienced that in months. Of course it's going to alert them. I'd much rather be like on our property where we're out, treating noxious weeds, planting food plots, doing prescribed fire, tracing the friends out walking, looking for shed antlers, walking during the deer season, walking the dog. The deer are accustomed to that and probably not as alert to human presence as they are in that sanctuary where someone enters and it's the first time human scent's been in there in several months. Understanding deer is a cool way to learn more about creation and how everything works together as a system. Nothing is totally independent. Well, that's how we are. We're not just here kind of drifting through life. There was a creator and we have a mission. And I hope each of y'all will be still today and every day, take time and intentionally seek the creator's will for your life. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.